Good morning and welcome to 3-Year-Old Steve, and today I am in Warmley by this rather lovely signal box. This is right behind me, and I've just panned round. You should be able to see in the background someone walking past me and it's a busy road, and beyond that is Warmley Station. So this is an abandoned railway line, and it's preserved mainly for cyclists and people walking. So I'll let you have a better look at the signal box. So here it is in all its glory, nicely preserved, and this is what we're going to try and create today in cardboard. So it's all a bit speeded up this. So these are the card templates I've printed off my Inkscape program. So what I basically do is I print them onto some nice stiff paper, and then I glue them to card. And then they are chopped up into slightly smaller pieces, and then I glue them to more card to actually build the thickness up. So I'm probably trying to look to build up about sort of 1/2 to 3/4 of a millimetre of card thickness. And obviously every time that I do this, it creates a sort of a lamination effect with the strength of the glue and makes it stiffer. So that's one of the sort of advantages of it. So I'm just using a very cheap glue stick and some very cheap card that I got from a local craft shop. I think the glue stick was £1 and the pack of card was like £1.50 for about 10 sheets. So yeah, quite an economical way of doing it. So when you're cutting with this rather lovely old scalpel that I've had for a very long time, obviously need very sharp blades. Probably what you can't see because it's so speeded up is what you need to do is use, what I'm trying to force the blade through is to use light strokes, lots of light strokes, and then you'll get nice accurate sharp lines on your cuts, which are obviously quite important. You don't want to actually damage the sort of the template or the shape of the template. So you can see I'm just building up the thickness of the card here gradually by continuing to glue it onto more sheets of paper. Right, the next stage is to actually put some texture paper on. So I've also made the texture paper on Inkscape, just printed it off, sheets of it. And it's to kind of hide the white bits of card on the edges of the actual template that I've cut out. So I'm just going to cut that up, and use a glue stick, and then just basically make sure it's nice and straight, so all the panel lines are straight as well. And then we just glue that together. Once it's dry, that's another piece that I'm chopping out here. This one is slightly more detailed template. So this is kind of the same deal. So we're just going to glue that onto this piece of card, and it's kind of designed so that you can actually fold the ends over. So you can use the glue stick to actually stick it to the card, but when you actually cut out the little panels, like for the window and stuff, so I'm just going to cut some shapes out so I can fold it easily back into the back of the shape. It's better to actually use PVA glue because it sticks a lot better than the actual glue stick would. Glue stick is nice because you can glue things nice and flat, but on surfaces where you're bending the thick paper over, you need something a bit stronger. So a PVA glue is probably a better solution to that problem. So the great thing about using texture paper is that you can create any kind of design on it, in effect, on Inkscape. So on this one, it's just basically the wooden panelling on the side of that part of the signal box. Now the signal box is constructed in 2 halves, so I've got the upper floor and the lower floor templates, and sandwiched in the middle is a platform, so that the platform forms the floor of the first floor of the signal box, and also the platform that runs around the edge of the outside of the signal box. I mean, I could possibly maybe make thin bits of platform to fit around the edge, but I think this is a nice, is a stronger solution. You've got one nice thick piece of card in the middle, sort of sticking the two halves together, if you like. So this just shows you how finely you can, with a Swan and Morton scalpel, you can cut these little bits of paneling out, or window frames. And so when I designed them on Inkscape, if you've seen my Inkscape video, which is kind of the design for this, although it's slightly different, you can go right down to about 0.75 of a millimeter and still accurately cut these little pieces out. And because the building is kind of made up of 3 layers, so you've got the main wall layer of the building. As you can see, it is very, like that is quite a fine piece of card. Yeah, going back to what I was saying, so you've got 3 layers. You've got the wall layer, which is like the main layer. You've got an outer layer, which is the sort of construction frame of the building, which is the red part of the building that you see, that's made out of some very strong timber, I guess. And you've got the sort of window frames. So those are the outer layer parts. I've just gone to this piece of paneling. This is the lower part of the signal box. And sometimes you can't always get the effect that you actually want from Inkscape, and it doesn't. You can sort of use paint as well. I mean, you can see on this piece as well, the actual wood, the big thick wooden red frame on the outside. That is all fully painted in acrylics, and I've used a burnt umber and a red colour to recreate that colour. What I would say, when you're if you do paint parts of the building, like the doors and things, is try and keep the paint mix fairly simple. So I tend to try and use like 2 colours. So I pick colours that will mix together and make that, rather than try and make it out like 3 or 4 colours, which you can do. And then you can keep the results fairly consistent, because you're only playing with 2 colours. You can sort of easily adjust it so it all matches up. And I tend to use like artist acrylic paints. You could I suppose use. I mean, I when I do paintings, I paint in oil paints. But acrylics are okay. They dry very quickly. They tend to make the thing that you're painting a bit more waterproof as well. And also when you get to varnish it, because obviously you want to protect it from getting damp. It takes varnish, sort of acrylic varnish, obviously takes it quite well. So I've made these window frames, and for some reason, I'm not quite sure why, they've come out slightly the wrong size. So I'm just having to sort of adjust them slightly to fit on the frame. But this is kind of my first version of this signal box, and we'll be making another one and checking all the scales and things and making sure all this stuff fits together. And it's all a bit of a work in progress, but I thought I'd fully make this one up just to show you the process of making it. So yeah, so I'm using PVA glue now to actually stick these frames on, and try and adjust them with my scalpel, and I've got a pair of tweezers as well. And you can build up some nice complex panels. So you can see this panel has the outer part of the main frame of the building. And also put in the window frames and all the other little bits of paneling and stuff, and it just all adds up to the realism of the building. It makes it much more 3-dimensional. So I'm just having a little look at these panels to make sure they actually all line up and fit together. Now we're going to work on the windows, and it's quite interesting what we do with the windows. So I've printed the windows onto some sticky labels, a A4 sticky label sheet, and so if you chop the windows out, you can stick them to bits of clear plastic like you would get from packaging and stuff. Like what I've done here. And what you basically do is you've created a template with like a negative, and you just score off all the lines, just in straight lines like that. You don't try and draw around the window, because that wouldn't work very well. So you just consistently score off the edge of the lines. And once you've done that, what you can do with a scalpel and some tweezers is just pull out the dark bits, the negative bits, and then you should be left with a very fine window frame with nice thin pieces of window. And like I said about before, the sort of thinnest you can go down to is about 0.75, and that makes quite a nice, very fine sort of window tracery shape. And if you use like other sort of different sizes as well around it, sort of like 1 millimeter thick and maybe up to 2 millimeters, you can make quite complex window shapes. So as you can see now, and I fit that. That is a window. It's got a clear plastic on it, and it's got all the bits of window frame in. Just glue it to the back of the template like that, and you just gradually work around the entire building until you have all your pieces completed, ready to be glued together. And what I've done here is I have the platform floor and I have an interior floor. So the platform floor is the bit that goes in the middle, so the upper pieces fit on top of that, and that's just basically a shape. So when I stick all the panels together, they're sort of designed to slot into each other, so there's a slight the frame on the long pieces slightly overlapped, so the frames on the thinner pieces fit into them, and you get a nice kind of corner shape. So I'm just going to glue all this together, and using the floor to keep everything at a nice right angle as well, consistent, so it's a consistent shape. And I'll probably just use a lot of PVA glue just to make it all stick together. PVA glue does dry clear, and I am quite a messy person, unfortunately. It does go everywhere. But when you actually varnish it, I mean, you can use varnish. In this build, I've actually used PVA glue itself as the varnish. I'm not sure it's a very good solution, but like I said, this is my sort of first attempt at doing this. But it does seem to give a nice kind of rugged look to the building. It's not flat looking. Some of the cardboard buildings I look at, even if you're not even close to them, they kind of look a bit flat and not three-dimensional. So a little bit of texture to sort of trick the eye is probably not a bad thing. But yeah, you obviously, I suppose the better solution is to use a nice sort of thickish matte varnish at the end. And you can clearly see all the window shapes in there and look rather nice. I'm just sorting out making sure it's all nice and square. And the floor fits in it properly. So we're just going to let that set. And then we can move on to the next stage of the build. As you can see, it all looks very nice. Very happy with that so far. See the door on the side. Right, so just making sure it's nicely glued together. So I'm just going to put some books on top of it. Done. So I'll come back a bit later. So that's now fully glued down. So what we're going to do next is actually glue the two halves together with the floor in the middle. So lots of PVA glue going on, and I've already glued the floor actually to the. There's a bit of video missing there, but I've already glued the floor to the top bit. So I'm just going to glue the bottom on, make sure it's all nice and straight. And the next thing I'm going to do is going to make the roof for it. So I've made, again, I'm using sticky paper this time, but I made all these templates on Inkscape, and I've made some tile paper as well. So the first thing to do is actually make the frame of the roof. So it's quite handy when you print it to make to divide the shape of the base of the roof in 4 squares, so that you can work out where the center is and where the various bits fit. So again, we're going to glue all this onto card. Let's make it nice and thick. I'm just using a bit of PVA this time to make sure it really sticks, because obviously it's quite important that it's nice and strong. So we're just going to glue all that up together, and then in a minute we'll start cutting the shapes out. So just putting that piece of tiles at the bottom. Right, okay, so we'll start cutting all these bits out now. A bit of a tedious process, but there's nothing very complicated about this, but it just takes a lot of time to do. It's quite labour intensive. Depends on your temperament. I quite enjoy it. It's quite sort of a soothing thing to do, and you're creating something. But it depends how patient you are, I imagine. So, like again, as like I said, lots of cuts, small, nice light cuts. You should end up with a nice, consistently accurate shape. Obviously, look exactly where the edge of the blade is going on the card when you cut it to make sure that you are on the edge of the shape. I can see I've starting to actually cut out all the pieces of framing that we're going to use to make the shape of the roof, because it's not a sort of a simple roof. It's a fairly complex, well, not complex, but a bit less straightforward than a normal sort of straight roof. This one is got a few extra angles on it. So yeah, this is for making a signal box. This is sort of an ideal method. It cuts out a lot of the sort of having to calculate it. So frame of the roof, and then we lay the tiles on top, just like you would with a real roof. So that these templates here that determine the shape of the roof. And so I'm just going to piece all this together. Probably need a few more parts to assemble it. Yeah, like I said, it's a slow old process. Even speeded up 4 times and highly edited, it takes flipping ages to do. But hopefully the result at the end, it will, justify the effort that you actually put in. And I am trying to actually build something that looks like a real place. So the signal box kind of has to look like the original that we saw at the beginning of the video. So just finishing off the shapes. Lots of cutting going on here. So hopefully in a minute we will get to the gluing part. So I'm just going to, so we've got one centerpiece that goes in there, and then you've got some little ribs that stick out the sides. So let's get those in. Just making sure it's square. It's surprising how strong PVA glue is. Well, it takes quite a little while to dry. You can get you can get the sort of things to stay in position quite easily, especially if you're gluing along sort of different surfaces. So you've got like sort of the horizontal bit and the upright part in the middle, and it does kind of hold it all together. So these diagonal bits are quite crucial to the shape of the building. So those are going in now.
Film it.
So just quickly counting how many pieces that is. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Is that 9 pieces? Counting a bit in the middle, something like that anyway. And that's what you end up with. So that is the basic shape of the roof. And now you've got, see, I've got some paper that I printed off, which is a tile texture. I'm probably going to use a different sheet. That one's got too many kind of lines on it. So I'm just going to. So the plan is we're going to cut these tiles out two tiles deep, and we're going to overlap them as we move up the side of the building. And we also want them to actually stick over the edge of the building as well. So I've glued like I think I've glued back 3 together in this overlapping pattern. So I'm going to flip the building upside down, the roof foundation, and we're just going to kind of glue it so it overlaps the bottom slightly and sticks out the bottom. And also doing it this way, the cascading effect stays consistent. If you just sort of started with one and didn't overlap it at the bottom, it kind of, for me, it doesn't work. It looks less effective. I've seen various different methods of doing this, but I think this one probably is the better method. What you need to remember to do, because I've printed it out on white card, is to get a very dark artist pencil, and anything that's white is to just black it out, like the edge of the card or any little nicks on it, anything like that. Just make it as black as you can possibly get away with it, otherwise it just shows, and it's kind of harder to fix. It's not impossible, but it's harder to fix at the end of the process. So we're just going to just basically trimming up the roof to make sure this thing fits properly. There's a little bit of slight bit sticking out. I don't really need that. So you can see three pieces glued together. And to begin with, I'm just going to kind of like cut it to size. But as we get into it and we layer it up, then that becomes less important. We can actually trim it once the glue is dried to a sort of accurate shape. So I'm just going to glue that edge. And anything else it's going to stick to. I just pop that in there, like that. Get the glue on nice and smooth. Just making sure that is on nice and straight, and also it's actually sticking to the framework on the top of the template. So I'm just going to let that dry a bit. Obviously you're seeing this all in one go, but each sort of separate stage, you can see the 3 layers of roof tiling that's going in. So let that dry. I also have some made up from the middle of the section of that paper, something like ridging, which is quite important because obviously it makes the building look more realistic, but also hides the join as well, which is quite useful. So I'm just going to chop up yet more double layers of tiles. It's sort of quite a lengthy process, this. I'll just keep going with this. So again, we're just going to build these layers up. So just keep going till we get to the top of the roof. Sometimes they slip. The other thing to bear in mind, although you're sort of layering it horizontally, you've got to try and actually get the brickwork to be in the right position, so it's not all in one line. So this, sorry, not the brickwork, the tiles, the edges of the vertical parts of the tiles to be offset to make it look realistic. I mean, it's quite faint. It's quite difficult to see. You really, what your eye notices is the actual ridging effect that you're creating by using this method. So just keep building it up and building it up. And there we go. That's one side pretty much. One last little piece, I think, to pop on the top. And then that's one side. It will be in a second. Just notice that the edge of it is not got any black pencil, like I said. So I'm just correcting that. A bit trickier to do when it's got glue all over it, but not impossible. So there we go. There's one edge actually completed. So I'm just going to repeat the process again. So we need to put the 3 at the bottom. So we put glue 3 together to get the overlap, and then we're just making this little overhang at the bottom, and just getting the right shape. Make sure it all hangs together. So lots of PVA glue going on here. So there we go, that's the next part set up. So the thing is to let that dry very thoroughly for a few hours before you start attempting to put more stuff on top of it. It's just making, it's just hard work if you try and do it that way. So if you let the glue dry between each stage, it's just takes longer, but it's kind of easy to go off and do something else while it's drying and then come back again. As you can see, I'm quite keen with my black pencil to cover up any glaring bits of white. Obviously, tiny little slivers of white can be quite look like it's actually picking light up from a light source, but you don't want anything too glaring. It's or too sort of consistent. You want to make it all look a bit random. So this is a slightly nicer sheet of brick paper that I've printed off. It doesn't have lots of squares and lines all over it like the other piece I showed you. It's come out a slightly browner colour as well. It's a bit weird, but I don't know why that is. But it still looks a good colour to me. So this is what I've been using to build this up. Again, lots of strokes. So I've actually just glued this to one thin piece of card. Obviously it can't be too thick, it's got to sort of represent the thickness of a tile. It's probably a little bit bigger than in reality the scale would dictate, but it does give you a nice kind of texture, which is what I'm looking for. A thing to make it look more three-dimensional, if you like, and more interesting to the eye. It's kind of a compromise between that and making it maybe more to scale, but kind of less real looking. Scale is a very interesting thing. I mean, you can build things exactly to scale, and they can still kind of look a bit flat or wrong. It's something you realise when if you do a lot of oil painting, like I do. A lot of it is just is trickery, really. It's fooling the eye into thinking something's there that's maybe not actually there. That's kind of the skill of it, and I think with the building, if you can make things a little bit more, give them a bit more relief maybe than they would have in real life, they just look slightly more interesting. It's like this thing with colour as well. If you often see like models that are exactly the colour of a big building, if you walked up to it and put the model right in front of it, it looks exactly the same. But the problem with that is there's a kind of there's a scale of kind of light intensity, if you like. So something that's very brightly coloured but small just doesn't look right. So it just doesn't. It looks kind of too bright, if you like. So you have to kind of tone it down to make it look like it sort of exists in its space. It's kind of it's a thing that you call atmospheric perspective. It's to do with the way the thickness of the air you're looking through when you look at an object. If the further it is away, the less colour it has in it, the less intensity it has. So if you're making a small building and the red is absolutely bright red, it just jumps out at you. It just doesn't look right. So you have to kind of calm it down a little bit to place it in its space. This is probably what I'm saying. It probably sounds like gobbledygook, but it is an actual, it's something you have to sort of maybe consider when you're making models. Is do I actually go in with the actual correct color match of blah blah blah, or do I make it slightly paler to make it look right within its environment? Everything is relative to its environment, if you like. So yeah. So this is what I try and do when I make these models. I don't want the colours to be too bright. I just want them to look kind of what they would look like if you saw the real building and you were standing away from it. So lots more cutting, and there we go, finally at the end. So this is the ridge tiles I was talking about. So I'm probably going to do it so that the bit on the highest part of the roof overlaps the other 4 pieces. Just to mention that the trimming of those of the edges of the bits that were sticking out of the roof tiles, just use some nail scissors. And you can just sort of run a scalpel down the side of it as well, just to get it so that these ridges fit nice and snugly. So on this printed paper that I made, in the middle is the section for the ridge. You can see that I've left a little bit of a white line, which is a bit of a mistake really, down the middle of it, the way I've designed it. But I can get around that because A, there's going to be a fold there, and B, we have a thing called a black pencil, which is like the best thing for doing this really. Artist pencils, very useful. They're useful for blacking things out, and also useful if you want to just maybe adjust the colour a little bit, but you don't want to use paint, get paint everywhere. You can just sort of run, say you've got something that's, you wanted it pale yellow and it's come out white, you can just run a pencil over the top of it, just gently, just to bring the colour up a little bit. But it depends how confident you are, I guess, with all these this sort of art materials and things. They're kind of got a graphic design background from a very long time ago, and it's kind of the sort of thing I'm comfortable doing, I guess. So I'm just going to get all this glued up. So yeah, like I was saying, we're just going to glue all these pieces onto the roof. The upper ridge top layer of ridge. I'm just going to slide all the other pieces underneath it to hide all the joins. We're just going to butt those all up together. Lots of PVA glue going in there. Doesn't matter if it's not sort of an exact fit. I'm just going to pop it back on the signal box to give me, so I can actually fit these pieces on. So I'm just going to leave that to dry for a little bit. Let's make sure it's all a good shape. And once it's dried, once I'm happy with it, just adjust it a little bit more. So, yeah. So the plan with this signal box, maybe in another video, is to make the ladder a kind of a brick platform that it sits on, and all the railing that goes around the edge of the signal box. So just going to come in, now it's dried. We're just going to come in with some scissors in a minute and trim off the ends. So probably it's kind of learning as I'm making, but I've realised that for this bit it's probably best to let the ridge tiles overlap the ends, so you can actually come along with a pair of scissors and trim them in the line of the roof, which is what we're just doing here. One of them I didn't actually do that, so it's a little bit not quite exactly how I want it, but good enough for now. Just trim all these off using a big pair of sharp scissors, and there you have it. You have a roof, pretty much. So once you've got the roof trimmed to how you want it, then you're going to come in with a nice black pencil and basically knock out all the white bits. So I'm just using the edge of this pencil. These artist pencils are incredibly useful for lots of things to do with this, and also just generally in some of the other sort of projects I do, art projects, very useful things. What I would say is buy yourself a very good pencil sharpener, you know, the kind that you used to see at school that would be clamped to a desk. The sort of plastic ones don't really cut it. You want something that works really well, otherwise you just end up with broken pencils. The lead just snaps off on the end, and it's not great really. So stick it all together, and there you have, for now, a signal box. Yeah, just gonna, there we go. So if you've enjoyed this video, then if you want to, then you could maybe like or subscribe or leave a comment. In any case, I will leave you with a few shots of the signal box that we. So thank you for watching 3R Steve, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.